Alrighty, sir. Well, welcome to the Inside the Cage podcast for the 5th episode now.
And to start already? Nice.
Yep. Start with your name, a little bit about yourself.
My name's Derrick Mandell. I'm 9-5 as a professional mixed martial arts fighter, and I was 12-2 before I went pro.
So you were getting ready for a fight a little bit. It was supposed to be earlier, but then you got a little bit of an injury. So how's that been feeling lately?
That's good. I mean, almost all the pain's pretty much gone. I'm just working on strengthening up the muscles that got a little weak over the time. I had a 2 bulging disc, which was creating a pinched nerve. So pretty much the whole right side of my body, arm, chest. Couldn't check my blind spot when I was driving, so.
You had like numbness and things like that?
Yeah, if I sat straight and I put my back straight, the whole right side of my whole right arm and my chest would start to go numb. So it was a little bit of time of healing, a lot of.
What's it like dealing with that, like in the middle of a training camp and having to like adjust to that?
Well, that was the biggest part, because the hardest part for me for being in the training camp and having this happen is, like, I could still do movement. It wasn't like I had a broken arm or something, but I was so weak on my strong arm side where I had to pretty much stop working out, and I had to let that heal before I could really push it and start getting the cardio that I need to go into a professional fight.
It's gotta be mentally frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, especially before my four-year break, it would have been a lot more frustrating. But with that time off and pretty much finding myself and finding what was important to me, the fighting's kind of extra now, and it's something that I love to do, and I love to experience getting in the cage and testing myself against other fighters. But also at the same time, my health and my well-being and my being comfortable while doing normal stuff with my family and nieces and all that, that was more important to me than anything. And not being able to make it through a night of sleep and not being able to drive my car without being extremely uncomfortable, that kind of took a bigger importance on me than the chasing the fighting and doing that. But once I get healthy and I'm able to get things back in order, I'll start to pursue that a little bit more again.
That's why we see a lot of like young athletes retiring early now, it seems like, because they see that same thing. They don't want to deal with the long-term injuries for their lives, and like people need to take that into consideration more, because they're so short-term. They're not looking at the long-term actual effects. But so talk about that 4-year break, because you had that 4-year break, you came back and you won by a first-round submission. So we talked about it once earlier before in an episode way back, but just run through that again, and what was that 4-year break over?
What caused the 4-year break?
Yeah, like what caused it, like kind of like what got you through it?
So what caused the 4-year break is, leading up to it, I was, within fighting, I pretty much lost the love and the enjoyment that I had in training and in learning movements, learning my body. I lost all the enjoyment in that, and my mind's focused on like being in the UFC and trying to be the best fighter in the world. That really took a toll on me when I was being successful in my fights, but I felt like I wasn't getting to that next level, or I wasn't getting what I thought I should be getting. And then once when I stepped back from that, I took that 4-year break. I almost took a break from it, because it was almost like I was pretty much torturing myself by telling myself I had to be at the gym. I had to be there, otherwise I would be losing in the rat race.
Obviously you've had a mind shift since then because of that 4-year break, so talk about that.
So with that mindset that I had, that caused me to take a break from doing something that I was passionate about and something that kept me healthy and strong, during that break, my day-to-day, my work, I still had that mindset. So that mindset that I had that caused so much disruption in MMA was causing so much disruption in my day-to-day life with my personal relationships. I'd be working at a job and I'd constantly be telling myself, oh, I'm too good to be doing this. So I do remediations, mold remediation. I would constantly be telling myself, or constantly be thinking about somewhere where I wasn't working in that job. Does that make sense?
100%.
So my mind was constantly telling me that you should be doing something more or better when there's nothing better to do. You just do what you're doing.
Yeah, we all have this goal that we want to achieve that we think is going to make us happy. And
we
achieve it, and then we realize it wasn't the goal that was going to make us happy.
Exactly.
And then it's just something else, you know.
Yeah. So when I was doing that, I really, for that 4-year break, I was in an extremely depressed state. I was when I woke up, I woke up and I was just dreading going to work. When I was at work, I was constantly thinking about being at home, playing video games, I shouldn't be at work. I should be having a better job where I don't have to do so much physical labor. So many of these thoughts. And then I started 2 years into that, or I'd say about 3 years into that, I finally committed to something called the Wim Hof method. And the Wim Hof method, for anyone that isn't, what word am I looking for?
Experienced, well-versed.
Experienced or aware of what the Wim Hof method is it's a breathing technique, cold exposure, and mindset. And so after I was doing that for about, I'd say 6 or 8 months of fully committing to doing at least one breathing session, a cold shower, and focusing on my mind's attention, I started having a lot of good feelings, and I felt really amazing while I was doing the breathing technique. But those 6 or 8 months doing it, when I was at work and when I was in my personal relationships with people, I was still in that same mindset, and I was causing so much dread on saying that I was falling behind or I wasn't where I was supposed to be at. And then when I finally started, I skipped over a part. But after doing the breathing technique for that long and having that feeling so good and feeling calm while I was doing it and after, I don't know how it came to my attention, but I read something called The Power of the Now by Eckhart Tolle, and that really flipped a switch in my brain. If you can feel so good laying by yourself, focusing on your breath and just focusing on your breath, focusing on your heartbeat, not letting that outside stuff come in and spike my heart rate and stuff. Once I started realizing how strong that was, and the power of the now really made me focus on how I can use that while I was at work and while I was doing stuff throughout the day. I could actually be more aware of what my mind's attention was on, what expectations I was putting on my work or what I was doing, or even being more aware of when I was at work, if my mind was focusing on video games, my body would be trying to give me that reaction that wanted me to go home. It would push me to be oh, this shouldn't be happening. Someone at work should be helping you out more. You shouldn't have to be here. You shouldn't have to be there. You should be exactly where you want to be, where your mind was telling you to be at.
Yeah, I found actually, especially recently, I've noticed because they always say your thoughts create your reality, and when it comes to doing something like going to get something to eat, I've noticed at points earlier in the day, I will either have that thought before I'm even hungry of thinking of the place that I want to go, or this thing that I want to do, go for a walk in the park or whatnot. And then the more that I think about it, the more it makes my body want to do it. So it's almost the more that you can solidify that thought in your mind, the more that it becomes your physical reality. That's why your thoughts are so important. Absolutely.
And then when I first started doing the Wim Hof, I should have pointed out when I first started doing it, and it was pretty much a guided meditation, a guided breath work. So when they tell you to focus only on your breath, it took me months to really realize how much I was focusing on outside of my breath. So I started realizing how long I could keep that focus on just the breath, and then over a period of time of doing it longer and longer, that amount of time I was able to focus on the breath started becoming longer and longer, and I could experience that feeling of calmness and pretty much peace within myself for a longer period of time. Now, when I switched that, after reading The Power of Now, when I switched that and I started using that method in my day-to-day, it wasn't like I was able to retain that focus in my day-to-day instantly. It was pretty much like I had to start all over. I had to really, while I was working, really try to focus on how my rhythm of my breath was going, what my mind's attention was on. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I did this breathing and overnight everything switched. I had to really focus on, I'm at work, I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna really be aware of my own presence and what I'm doing to my coworkers, what I'm doing to my boss, how I am making other people feel. Yeah, and when I stopped being such a miserable fuck, I'd say.
Yes.
When I stopped being like that, people around me were more willing to help me on the job. Mm-hmm. So like, I was constantly making my coworkers and people around me feel like they were walking on eggshells. Like, oh my God, if I get him mad, he's gonna snap, and then the work day is gonna be terrible because I'm making it terrible. And I didn't really realize that until I really started slowing my mind down and really being aware of my own presence and being aware that, like, if you can keep people around you happy and keep people around you calm and at peace and not feeling like you're gonna snap, they're more willing to help you. They're more willing to be a part of getting the job done.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, people don't realize, like, your external world is a direct reflection of your internal thoughts and your internal world. And like, people think that like other people are the issue, but maybe it's the vibe that you're giving off, the energy that you're giving off, because like people just like this. I work around them at work all the time because in the restaurant industry, everyone is miserable. Like they'll come in miserable at work, and I used to be that way too. And like now I'm just coming there and I'm just chilling, I'm vibing, because I know that's not like my sole priority. I don't put my sole focus on that, because like this place is my sole focus. So whatever happens there really doesn't bother me. It's more to just like talk with my friends and make money. But my manager, I'll ask him how he's doing all the time, and he will never say he's good, happy, nothing. Yeah. It is always something. And it's just like, why are you so miserable all the time? And it's like, it makes me then not want to try and talk to you, not want to ask you how you are. And it's not because I'm a bad person, it's because of the vibe and the energy that you're giving me when I'm trying to talk to you.
Yep, absolutely. Like, he's not aware of his own presence. Yeah. He's not aware of what he's actually giving off. And like, but I also will say, once you really, really have a deep understanding of why, like once I understood why I was acting like that, once I really understood that when I woke up in the morning and first thing I do is look on Instagram or look on Facebook, and I see my friends or people posting pictures on vacation or at a beach. Or they might not even, these people might not even be at the beach. Oh, yeah. They could have took these pictures months ago and then posted them that day, even when they're going to work. But when I look at that and I realize, so the first thing that goes to my mind is, I'm going to work, I wish I could be at the beach sipping a martini or something. And then when I realized how much that affected me at work, or in my instance, it was big on like, I was so miserable at work, I just wanted to get home and play some video games, to get outside of my thinking, to get lost in the game. And when I really started analyzing that, I had a more understanding of why other people were having these outrages and stuff. So you can really become more accepting of like that, what somebody is giving off to you if they're being angry towards you or something. It's not really you that's making them angry. It's their thoughts, their expectations. It's what they have going on inside of their mind that's causing them to act out like that.
Yeah. And then a man will make himself miserable if you give him no distraction.
Absolutely.
From himself.
Yep.
Because like I found that when I start focusing on other people, then everything else just kind of goes away. And it's like it doesn't exist anymore. But as soon as I start focusing on myself, that's when like all those negative thoughts start coming back, and like I get in my own way basically.
It's funny that you bring that up, because exactly how I felt when I first started doing the Wim Hof method, like my first reaction to how good I was making me feel, I wanted to run around and I wanted to tell everyone. You know, I wanted to tell everyone, oh, you got to start doing this. You got to start doing this. It's the best thing. But then I also realized when I started putting expectations and attachments on that, wanting to bring it to other people, wanting to bring it to other people that I loved and cared about, that me doing that could also cause it to take myself out of experiencing what I'm trying to get them to experience. You know, because there'd be people that are open to it, but are kind of drawn away from it. And you have to let them experience it and learn it by themselves.
Speaking of drawn away from it, so talk about perspectives and remember the one time that we were in here and we were doing the exercise, and I have no idea who he is, but he came up to us and asked if he could pray for us. And we were like, yeah, sure, that's no big deal. And we it was for sure like a backhanded dig. 100% it was, because they had no idea, no perspective of what we were doing. And so they came to their own conclusion that it must be this negative thing, even though I myself am a Christian. So like you're literally believing the same exact thing that I'm believing, but it's your own negative perspective that's giving you that reaction to then go and try and do what? Make somebody else feel bad for what?
Yeah,
literally nothing.
Trying to work on themselves. Yeah, see, it's that. But so if I would analyze that very, very deeply, the person that did that to us, in his mind, he is assuming that we are doing something that we're not.
100%.
So like, cause when you're doing breathing techniques and mindfulness meditation, all we're talking about, we're not talking about anything outside of, in this present moment, right here and now. What does my body and what tools do my body have to affect my emotional state? Does your mind's attention and does the rhythm of your breathing affect your emotional state? Does your emotional state affect the way that your physical reactions are? Does your physical reactions affect every living being around you, every living thing? I mean, once you start to really realize that, that's when it really starts. I mean, that for me, that's when everything started to click, and I started having more understanding of why people had those feelings and why people had those outrages.
I feel like it's because like a part of them looks at that and they'll see that person as saying, you know, I am, you know, above other people, or I am God myself, essentially. And that's like a big thing happening in our like society right now, is the concept that, you know, everything, like you matter. Like nothing else outside of how you feel matters. Like it's all about you. And so like everybody's developing this God complex. And so what's fascinating about it is when you actually do the exercises and you go through the experiences, to me it's more of an indicator of how amazing like a creator is and how amazing God is, because he gave us that ability to like calm ourselves, to have that kind of control over our emotions, over our reactions towards others, and have that awareness to not only be better for ourselves, but to be better for the people around us.
Absolutely, yeah. Once we start, there's this one quote, I forgot exactly who said it, but they were talking about when the power of love becomes stronger than the love of power, we'll have peace. And that is very strong. Now when I think, I have to say I think, because I don't know what's going on in anyone else's mind but my own, but when people have this negative thought on breath work and mindfulness meditation, I would assume that they think that we are trying to get closer to God than other people, other humans. And that's totally opposite. I'm not trying to get closer to God. I'm trying to use the tools that our Creator created us with to have more, to be more of a creator in the present moment than just be a reactor to outside circumstances.
Yeah. So with this method now, especially with everything that's happening in our world, it seems like it's just chaotic every direction that you look. How does something like this tune out everything else so that it doesn't affect you, especially when you're getting ready for a fight and it can't.
So when you have so much going around you, and you have, there's this thing, let me know if this answers your question, because I look at it as like, so a positive mindset and a negative mindset, you have to have on your in your what's going on in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. So you can have a negative mindset and a positive mindset, and both of those act as like an ignition to the body, to set the body in motion. But if you set the body in motion and you are fully putting the gas on the floor, sooner or later you're gonna run out of gas. There's this neutral standpoint where our bodies can go into more of a restful and a rest and digest state. So when you can focus, when you feel that anxiety, when you feel like you're losing the rat race, or you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be, realize that you can take that mindset and put it on neutral things. So you can focus your mind on how is your rhythm of your breath. You know what I'm saying? How are you taking really, are you, and when you start focusing on that, your mind starts to become neutral. And then you can start focusing on the feeling. You can start touching the mat, start focusing on just stuff that is in the present moment purely, and get yourself into a neutral mindset, and then you can shift where you want to go with that. But if you're in a negative mindset, if you try to jump straight to a positive mindset, you're putting a want in the present moment. So it's very hard to go from negative straight to positive, because that want can easily turn into back to that negative.
100%, and I think just a big reason for it too, just that fact that it helps you slow down and kind of just realize that, okay, hold up, things aren't as crazy as it seems, because at the end of the day, you're in control of your own craziness. Like, you can put the phone down, you can turn off the screen, you can read a book, you can do literally anything that you want to just tune out the outside world. You're the one that's choosing to consume it, and so that's the reason that your world feels so chaotic. But then when you do these exercises, it clears that mind, and it really helps you slow down.
Absolutely.
And realize, like, things are pretty chill right now. Like, I'm good.
And if you really think about it, outside, what else could slow your heart rate down and make you feel in a peaceful state?
Let's bring it back to that 4-year period. Then you did all this self-help, essentially, brought you into a shift of mind, and then you decided it was time to come back. Mm-hmm. And so what was that like when you came back, and after all your doubts in that 4 years, you get a first round submission?
I mean, that was fun. That was a great experience to have.
What was it like, the lead up for that? Because it was a 4-year break. So that had to have been anxious, nervous.
Well, see, that's what, before every single one of my fights, before my last one, every single one of my fights before this one, the lead up and right before I was walking out, my shoulders would literally get so heavy where it felt like I couldn't even hold them up before the fight. When I really tried to use these techniques for this fight, I really tried to keep my mind off of expectations on how the fight was gonna go, what round I was gonna get a knockout. I kind of tried to put all that aside and not try to convince myself of anything, and just stay focused on the breath and try to keep my heart rate low and keep my mindset on nothing's going on around me right now. I can stay calm up until I get into that cage and save that adrenaline, save that second wind, and not stress my body out before it needs to be stressed out.
Were there any questions or doubts that you kind of settled inside that cage with that kind of a victory? Like questions as to whether or not you still had it, or were still the same skill level that you were before that break? I know myself, I know I would have been doubting myself, at least a little bit, especially.
See, I doubted myself so much in other fights that self-doubt, in my opinion, is what caused me to take that 4-year break, to maybe guided me to learn these things that I was learning, to find that belief in yourself again, that it kind of like, see, I think the biggest part that caused me to have more of a relaxed feeling about this fight is it wasn't like the end of the world. It wasn't I have to win to make it to that end goal. I was already content in where I was. Now everything, I can have fun fighting. I can have fun experiencing that again without it being, if I lose, I might never make it to the UFC. If I lose, I might never get another good fight. You know, stuff like that. That getting rid of those fears and those thoughts helped me perform more in the present moment.
Was it kind of like you learn to love the process rather than the result? Because we all focus on the result, and then we hate the process, and like, because we see how much work that the process is, we just want to skip all of that. That's why we have all these quick diet pills and all these quick solutions to long-term problems. And until you realize that, and until you love that process, you're never going to achieve the goal that you think. Like, you need to be dedicated to that process. So what was worse then, the mental fight or the physical fight then?
The mental fight, for sure. Yeah. At some point, you just got to tell yourself, like, when you're walking out to that fight, you put in all the work that you could have. You are as good as you're gonna be. Now just go out there and try to stay calm, try to stay open-minded, and just flow and do your best in that fight.
How is it that you know and can be so sure when you put in every ounce of effort that you could in the lead up to the fight? Because I can tell you for a fact there are so many people just in this gym alone, especially like just even statistically, like, take everything out of it. People do not give it their all in the lead up. There's always something that they could do better, and that is what separates the elites from the wannabes, basically. And so, where was I going with this? Because I totally lost track of that thought. It was a good one too.
Knowing if you put in all the work that you could have.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah. So how can you be so sure, and when do you learn how to put yourself through that? Because that can be a grueling process when you truly understand the dedication that you need to have.
Yeah, the results speak for it. So like, the results will kind of show you how much work you put in and what you need to work on. Now, but when you're walking out to the fight, when you're about to walk out into that fight, you have to let all that go, though. Does that make sense? Like, when you're about to walk out there, you did all the work that you could have. You're about to go out there and fight. There's no extra work to put in. There's nothing. There's nothing to do but go out there and fight. So you are going to be the best that you have made yourself in that moment. So you got to put aside all that for a minute and just go out there and perform the best you can. Now, afterwards, you can analyze, and if you got tired in the fight, can you tell yourself, maybe I need to work on my cardio a little bit more, maybe I need to work on keeping a calm breath during the exchanges. So if you really analyze from the experience and then go back to work, so there's always more that you can do.
What's the difference between analyzing yourself and your performance when you have the win versus when you have the loss? Because obviously you're going to be a lot more critical of yourself after you lose a fight. And it seems to lead that you might fall into the trap of being self-delusional if you keep winning and you don't really see, okay, where do I actually need improvement on, right? Because there's fighters that have obvious gaps, but their skill is so good in that one aspect, it negates where they're lacking, right? And so if they don't have somebody to either call them out and be like, listen, you still suck at this, or they don't have that in themselves to have that humility to realize that, what is that process like for you after a win?
I mean, you definitely learn a lot more from a loss. After a win, like you said, I think that's why so many fighters get to that UFC championship and then they have that downfall after they win that. It's because that's the goal that they were chasing. That's that positive mindset that they were going after that was causing the ignition. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. There's always something to get better at. So yeah, when you start winning and if you start telling yourself that you're the best and nobody can touch you, and you don't need to train as hard anymore, when you start not thinking that it was the preparation that got you ready for the fight, and made you be able to do that, when you start thinking it was just you and your own gifts, and I think that's going to be you're going to run into somebody that is going to outwork you. So, I mean, analyzing a win, I mean, honestly, it's just coming back to the gym and not getting too cocky, you know, after that win, getting back to the gym and working on footwork that you're already good at, working on combinations that you think that you're amazing at. Like, there's always ways to perfect it. Bruce Lee said it really good. He said, well, don't train until you can do something right. Train it until you can't do it wrong. So that, I mean, if you go in there and you win a couple fights, that's great, but there's always somebody else working. There's always somebody getting better. I mean, you gotta continuously try to better yourself, you know?
What's your views on natural talent versus just hard work?
Oh, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I mean, I've always known that for sure, and I've experienced that for sure.
Like, what level of hard work? Because yes, we know that hard work at the end of the day, it will beat talent. But, you know, there are obvious skill gaps within people. So like what really determines how much harder it takes to work to actually out-skill somebody that is just objectively better than you? That's always kind of like, I don't know, because like it's like, if somebody who's obviously just very bad, is it realistic to say if they just work really hard, are they going to be like, let's just say they put on the perfect performance, the perfect everything, they do everything perfectly right, is it really realistic to say that they could beat a UFC fighter? And you could say it's the fight game. I just think there's at least some points to be like, all right, maybe I have to accept I'm just not very good, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things like finding what is good at like your body type and different things like that. But I will say, you have to be completely honest with yourself, because somebody could tell themselves they're working hard because they come here and they stay here for 5 hours and they work out for 5 hours. And they are claiming that they're working hard.
But they don't do anything the rest of the week. Bro, there's so many things like that. Not even just weightlifting. There's so many things with just like, ugh.
But look at this. So if somebody comes in here and works out for 4 hours straight or 5 hours straight, and their mind is thinking about their goals, if their mind is thinking about being at home, just because they're here working doesn't mean they're learning. Somebody that comes here with an open mind that keeps their mind in the present moment, that is listening to all the instructors, is really trying to add to their game and really trying to figure out why their movement is off. If you're here for 1 hour and you put all your attention, you dump out all the bullshit, that, in my opinion, is working harder than the person that's here for 4 hours not working.
It's one of those things where like it makes me so mad, and I equate this to people all the time. When it's like in relationships, like, are you truly somebody's friend or like in a healthy relationship when like you're in front of their face, you know, for 3, 4, 5 hours being their friend, but then when you're not in front of them, what are you doing the rest of the time, the rest of the week? You might be talking bad about them, might be thinking bad thoughts about them. You know, at least the people around me are negative. Maybe I'm biased around that area. But it's like, I see everybody around me being so nice to people's faces, but then as soon as like they're away from them, they'll just talk bad about them. And it's like, it makes no sense, and that's why people struggle in just their life in general, because apply that to life. Like, if you're only putting in like 5 hours of work in any aspect, any career, but then the rest of the time you're out partying, you're out eating junk food, you're out like destroying every aspect of your life outside of that, like even your faith and religion, people are horrible about this. They're going to church on Sundays and praising God, but then the rest of the week, what are they doing? They're out drinking, they're out going clubbing, they're out, like, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
And then they wonder why they're so miserable, and it's like your external life is clearly contradicting what you're delusionally thinking inside.
Exactly.
And it's just like, people just need a wake-up call, I swear.
I would say there's a very small amount of people that truly let their mind and their body obtain the same space at the same time. Their mind's always ahead of them or always dwelling on the past.
I feel like it just also comes down to being like true to yourself too, because like people are always afraid of like what other people are thinking, but then most often those are your just own thoughts about yourself that you're projecting. Well,
as much as we talk about this kind of stuff, what does it affect? What if you are worried about what someone else is thinking? Does it matter what they're thinking, or does it only matter what you think they are thinking?
Yeah, literally, because they might not even be thinking that.
Exactly.
Like, you're literally projecting your own thoughts about yourself onto them, because you are assuming what they're thinking, you are assuming their intentions, but you have no idea at the end of the day. But we have to like maintain our own reality and our own worldview, and so we have to come to our own conclusions. But people have just such the misunderstanding that those aren't the objective realities. Those are just your subjective reality. Could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I would say you're 100% right, because almost everything that's happening on the outside is neutral to you. Your thought process and your expectations and what you want to happen is creating that emotional effect on you, and that's gonna either make you a mad person at the situation, or you know what I'm saying, if you think that somebody else is holding you back from your peacefulness or your happiness, then you're gonna get angry with them, when in reality the only person that can hold you back from happiness, peace, is yourself and your own.
I try and just be like nice to everybody now, and like if you're not nice to me back, I'm just like, okay.
And you gotta realize,
I'm still gonna try and be nice to you, but like,
okay. them
them
lashing out to you though, we know what's going on with them now though, right?
So I mean, sometimes I feel like people just don't like people because they just don't want to like people.
But aren't they if somebody's being angry with you and you know it's a secondary thing, you know that person's creating their own suffering.
Oh yeah.
Like when I see somebody yelling, when I see somebody beeping at me or somebody getting mad at me in traffic, I look at them and my first thought, back before I did all this, my first thought was, let's pull over to the side of the road. I'll show you who you're beeping at, blah blah. But now when I'm with this understanding, I look at them and I'm like, I feel so bad for them. I feel bad for them because they don't even realize they're making their heart rate go up, their blood pressure go up. They're putting themselves into a fight or flight state of being. When you're in that state, there's only attack or run away. You don't have a choice. And that's what I'm talking about with the positive mindset and negative mindset. You are literally putting yourself in a fight or flight. You're putting the gas to the pedal to get something done. And that's useful. But if you're not aware of that, if you're not aware of this neutral state, the state where your heart rate will rest, your body will go into a rest and digest state. When you're not aware that you're able to do that, you can get taken over by that negative or positive mindset that causes you to do anything, remove any object in the way. You'll do anything to get to that one goal that's going to create that peace and happiness within yourself. And when you start to realize that if you have that positive mindset and you're chasing after that goal, you finally get that goal and you feel good. But now, what's left? Your whole life you've been chasing one goal. So now to get you back into that state, you have to put another goal. And then if you put another goal and your whole mindset is, I will destroy anything, I will remove anything in my way to get to that, that's when you can start creating a lot of chaos amongst all of us here together.
Yeah, I think people are so busy trying to create a peaceful circumstance that they forget how to find peace despite the circumstance. And they want to create their bubble so badly that they don't want to open it up to anything else because for whatever reason, right? And I that's what I used to think I wanted to do. And like now I'm starting to realize like I'm much happier the better that I can learn to communicate with other people. And like whether we have differences, whatever it might be, your life is going to be much happier the better that you can just learn to have positive relationships in your everyday life and just in your daily interactions, no matter who it might be. Because the end of the day, life is too short to have any negative thoughts about other, like, people in your daily life. If they're really horrible
who's
people,
it affect too?
Right. And
your negative thoughts are only affecting you.
Just, yeah, 100%. So now going forward, now that you're back, you're kind of recovering from this annoying nerve pain now. So when's the time frame when you're trying to get back in the cage? Do we have a set date? I forget.
No. I mean, like I said, with
targeted
this
month, or
but with this mindset and stuff, the whole, I try not to. I kind of try to. I know that once I get into the gym and I am ready to fight, that the right fight will happen.
Oh, sure.
That's almost the mindset that I have to have to take at this. Now, I have only, since the injury, I've only been getting to the gym 2 or 3 times a week, so I need to amp that up. I need to start putting the strength back in my chest and my tricep. I need to get back to normal and then start working on my cardio, and once I'm actually ready, I believe that it'll happen. So I mean, no time frame, I'm just trying to live my life, you know?
Yeah, you've got to be itching to get back in there, though. I know.
But yeah, I mean, I can't.
I'm excited to see you get back in there.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Are you? I mean, I know you're gonna. I already know your answer to this. No, I'm gonna go with whatever happens. What do you want to happen in your next fight? Do you want it? Do you want to get a? Have you had a standing finish? Have you had like a standing knockout?
I want to happen whatever's supposed to happen.
I know you're gonna say that, but have you? So in your career, then, have you had a?
See, now you're making me put expectations on it. But yes, having a stand up. KO or a stand-up finish, that would be awesome, because that is something that I haven't had. It's always been wrestling and takedowns, submissions, or TKOs.
Oh, so you've had a TKO. So how did the TKO come about? What was it?
I dropped him with a right, and then I was in his guard, and I postured up and landed a really good overhand right, which opened up his guard, and I was able to end it with a flurry.
What was that like, just kind of like pounding somebody on the ground?
The adrenaline release that you get from it is insane. But that's what I have to remember too. That's an adrenaline release. You know, I feel like people can get very confused about a high adrenaline release with doing something that you're passionate with a peaceful state. You know, so that can drive. If I thought the only time that I could feel that amount of joy and that amount of peace was when I won that fight, that'd be the only thing I would be able to chase, you know? Have you ever seen the movie Soul?
Oh,
the Disney movie?
Yeah.
That one really impacted me by how it says, like, your one main purpose is great and you can find a lot of joy in that, but you don't want to let that take you away from all the other enjoyment things that it could be. You know, like hanging out on the beach with somebody you love, or hanging out on the beach by yourself, letting your feet hit the sand, letting that water hit you, like enjoying, truly taking it all in and taking a deep breath outside and listening to the birds. Like, I mean, it's crazy, because if I would have told this to my younger self, I wouldn't have listened to myself at all. I'd be like, this guy's loony, like all I want to do is fight. Mm-hmm. But having the experience of going through that 4 years of giving up that goal, and now coming back and actually using it as like something that I can just enjoy and do for fun, like it's not that big of a deal if I don't become a Conor McGregor and make $1 million and win the world championships. It's not that big of a deal, because I'm just as special as anyone else that's doing that.
Are you afraid it kind of like removes the like one half of that part of life, though, that is kind of like a key aspect? Because, you know, yeah, it would be amazing, you know, achieving that goal, but then it's almost like the downsides of you don't get that feeling of coming short either, and like having that experience, and you know, you're almost kind of removing an aspect of life, I feel like, by not fully being invested in the experience and the actual emotions that are associated with that. So like when you have a massive fight, you know, I think your thought process might be to like not celebrate too much or like be over dramatic with it. But you know, you could also attribute to being part of that experience as well, and you know, the positive emotions associated with it.
Yeah, somewhat. I just think we need to, as a collective society, I think we need to start enjoying life itself than the championships and those things that come that we've made. You know what I'm saying? When we were cavemen and we just started, we didn't have this dream of being the best fighter in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Just survive.
So I definitely will let myself enjoy that and have that process, but you have to be careful not to make you turn into a monster.
Do you think an aspect of life is to knowingly put yourself through hell to achieve something, knowing that the purpose is to find peace despite that circumstance?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you have to have suffering to...
Knowing that you are going to have to, like, sacrifice things and not allow yourself to enjoy things, knowing that you're going to have to give those up to accomplish this goal, which is something that I think would go against enjoying the present and saying, oh, this is a part of the moment, so I'm going to enjoy it. But rather saying, no, I'm going to do something that I know is going to suck, but I am going to find the enjoyment in that. Knowing that you're chasing a purpose.
Somewhat. I mean, I'm not against chasing a purpose. I'm against letting that purpose turn you into a monster.
Yeah.
So, like, before I had the knowledge of taking deep breaths and having control of your emotional state with the mindset, when I was chasing the goal of the UFC dream or only getting fights, when I was at work, if I wasn't off at a certain time, if stuff didn't happen to make me feel like I had enough time to get rest before I came to the gym, it made me an extremely negative person to be around at work. Say a fighter, you have to be so disciplined with your eating habits and your weight and making sure you're in shape and all that. When I left, my mind was playing tricks on me, saying that I was kind of mad because I couldn't eat what I wanted. I couldn't party like some of my other friends were doing and stuff like that. But when you really think about it, all of those 4 years breaks, when I was eating anything that I wanted, I put on weight. I didn't feel as good as I felt when I was training. So, like, having the experience of not training and eating what I want, not being aware of my weight, that made me feel like crap. So almost realizing what I was doing to train for fights made my body feel good and kept me healthy. That really helped me change my mindset on, like, the forceful, I felt like I was forced to be working out at night. I felt like I was forced to watch my diet. I felt like there was an external thing that was forcing me to do these things. When I get rid of that external force to do that, I'm gonna become a better fighter and a much healthier person and more in shape than I was when I was forcing it.
It's funny because James messaged me the other day and he was like, hey, I'm loving the podcasts. However, some people have said that they're a little too long. And I'm like, well, what do you expect? It's a podcast. Yeah. It's kind of designed to be long.
You're supposed to be.
And it's like, at the end of the day, it's not my fault. Nobody can pay attention these days anymore. Like, that's the problem. Give me your thoughts on that. People's attention spans.
I have something that we were just talking about.
Sure.
I want to touch on base on one more thing. Because I think the only thing that we're missing, I think we're not, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're seeing eye to eye on. So enjoying the present moment and the breath, like, you can almost relate that to just staying at home and not doing anything and just focused on your breath. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to do the things that I'm talking about. So get back to the gym and start chasing that goal again, but not be so fixated on the mindset of it while I'm training.
No, 100% it makes sense. I just feel like from my perspective, it would kind of diminish the actual goal to a degree, to the point to where you may not do what's necessarily the best to achieve that goal. as long as you are still aligned with your morals and with everything around you. So like basically, do you want to go out and drink one night, or do you objectively know that you should rather like either stay in or go to the gym and have a workout instead? I feel like you would just be more susceptible to saying, I'm just going to enjoy the moment, I'm going to go out and drink this one time. So that's the only thing that I feel like that I have an issue with, that perspective. But like everything else, 100%, just when it comes to that aspect. I just feel like it would leave you susceptible to.
Yeah, see, I like that. The only thing that I could come back, I could counter you with like, what if that one time that I was like, oh, maybe I really do feel like going to get a drink and going to hang out instead of going for a run or something. What if that one time I go out and have a drink and Dana White.
Fucking Dana White, you were gonna say that.
I'm just saying, like, what if somebody is there that I meet and I have a good conversation with?
I fucking hate you.
That helps put that goal.
No, you're right, 100%.
So I feel that's almost like opening up your mind to listen to what your body is really trying to tell you. What if it's trying to guide you to the right direction, and if you just got to stop fighting it. You got to stop telling yourself where you see.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
Okay,
that's 100% a fair point.
I don't know if I said it. I think we might have said it. But I guess the only thing that I would say, the biggest part about reading The Power of the Now, conversation with God, conversation with God.
That is the one book you will never shut up about. Anybody that's listening. Yep.
The Power
of Now by Eckhart Tolle. If you ever talk to Derrick, he will always talk about that book until you read it, and I still have not read it.
Well, that book it did so much for my conceptualized. Is that what I'm trying to say? Conceptualization. Yeah. So like when I was doing like I said, I was doing the Wim Hof method, and I was listening to all of his stuff for 8 months. And when I was at work, I was telling instead of video games, it started becoming the breathing. So my misery was that I was at work and I was like, I can't wait to get home to do the breathing. So I replaced the video games with the breathing.
Yeah, you gotta find the substitute.
And that's what
you gotta do.
Well, that's what the concepts in The Power of the Now helped me take. I was like, just something clicked when I read that, and I was like, what am I doing? What is making me feel so good when I'm doing the breathing techniques? And I was like, okay, so why don't I start focusing on the breath and keeping my mind neutral when I feel that fight or flight, when I'm out there and I'm like, oh, I just wish I was at home. Wait a minute. I'm here now. How can I enjoy right now and make the best decisions right now to get to my goal? You know, I feel like that's the little concepts that I needed and the experience that I needed to really understand what humans are capable to produce in the now. So
yeah, no, 100%. I've definitely started to learn that a lot more too. Especially that first time doing that breathing exercise with you. Like my body felt so weird. Like it felt like I was being electrocuted, and like I was cramping too like crazy. But it felt good. I'm not gonna lie. And so I'd highly recommend anybody comes. We do it on Sundays at 6 o'clock. If anybody wants to join us. And yeah, it's gonna feel weird if it's your first time. I'm gonna just warn you now. But what other books would you recommend? While we're actually on that real quick before we wrap up, you said The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, just off the top of your head.
Yeah, but so The Power of the Now by Eckhart Tolle is definitely probably my number one. Conversations with God by. See, that's why I want to look it up. I don't know the Dion Walsh or. I have to look up the name of that.
When in doubt, I have subtitles so.
Okay, and then there's a couple of small books by, his name's Thich Hutch. It's Living Buddha, Living Christ. Okay. That one was really good.
I really liked, not in any particular order, but Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. I found that one just so fascinating because if anybody doesn't know, it's a journal literally of Marcus Aurelius' life as an emperor of Rome. But he didn't start writing it until like he was like 40 or something like that, after he was already a king or the emperor. And it's literally just himself writing personal diary entries.
Yeah.
And he never had any intention of anybody reading it. And so you're literally getting the most honest perspective of somebody's thoughts as just a human, but also as a human that was an emperor of Rome. And it's just so fascinating. He was very smart, very philosophical, and yeah, it's super fascinating to read. And also The Power of Awareness by, I know Neville, I don't know if he has another name too, but for sure Neville. That's a good one of like learning how to shift your perspective and how to focus on what it is that you want to accomplish and like your goals, and bring them more closer to your immediate reality by just learning how to shift your perspectives and take new actions that accomplish that. And the third one, I mean, I'm honestly gonna say the Bible, because like objectively, whatever you believe, like it is philosophically even just agreed on that it is a book of amazing wisdom. And you just replace God with the universe, and it is still an amazing book of just philosophy and how to improve your daily life. And like whether you want to believe in God, whether you want to believe in the universe, at the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. You should believe in Jesus, but it's just a way to just learn how to live a better life.
Here's one. I talked to you about like how Jesus was really big on walking with faith and not judging, right? So I talked to you about this before.
I'm sure.
So when you walk with faith, how can you walk with faith? What do you do in the present moment when you have complete faith and you're just living with faith? And you're walking with it.
You're vibing, honestly.
Yep. But you don't have to manipulate. You don't have to make anything happen to receive something, right? So you're just completely with faith. You just do what you need to do and do what's right? Then how do you judge?
I mean, he who is without sin cast the first stone, and so that is.
But where can we judge our circumstance right now or a future circumstance? Where does the judgment have to come from? We have to have a similar experience to judge that from, right? So judging is having your mind in the past, and then walking with faith keeps your mind out of the future.
Yeah.
So in my philosophy, I would say that walking with faith and not judging helps you become more present. And helps you become more aware of what your presence is doing to others around you.
100%. And I feel like people too just were more willing to accept that to some degree you have a point of ignorance. Whether it's big or small, to some degree you are ignorant to something in that situation, that scenario. And if you just realize that, you'd just be a lot happier in your life, and you just be a lot less judgmental towards others. Because at the end of the day, it's like, why do you care what they're doing so much?
Yep.
Do your own thing. Like, don't you have something to work on? Focus on that. Anyways, well, thanks for coming on the episode.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. This was fun, and I look forward to you finally fighting again.
Yep.
And I'll see you Sunday.
Yep.